How are you?
Doing good, Kevin. Well, I know it's summer, so people are kind of all about, and especially at least our West Coast states have been very busy, finally reopening to 100%. So that's been very exciting. I know some of you are like, "What? We've been there for like 6 months," but it's exciting to catch up with everybody there. So today's topic, we are going to go over, just really share some of the best books that have helped you become a better manager, helped you work with your staff. I was going to do a quick lesson of kind of what I would do with my staff. One I've actually done with my Cutco sales team. And I just, one of the things I wanted to say before is, one of the reasons I loved being in a leadership role and as a manager is it really forced me to develop faster. Because one of my big goals was always to make sure my staff was developing as people. That was one of our big keys to retention. Especially if you're working with entry-level people, they can go anywhere for an entry-level paycheck. There's a lot of opportunities they can go and get jobs in their industry. But especially as young, entry-level, sometimes they're even students, they don't find many places where that place of work cares about their next steps after that workplace. Right? Most employers are going to say, here's what you need to do to be successful at this job. And that's what we're going to focus on. And when you can give them some tools to say, hey, here's what's going to help you be successful, not only for this job, but going to help you for the long term, right? Something you're going to use forever. They don't get that many places. And that ends up increasing retention where some managers are almost afraid, like, I don't want to get them too good because then they're going to leave, right? Where eventually they do, right? And we know they're going to leave either way, but I would much rather have them leave because they've gotten such a great opportunity because of the skills that you've helped them develop. And so that's one of the reasons I always love leadership is that was such a core focus for me that it kept me on my toes because I can't deliver development, teaching to them if I'm not working on my development personally as well. So it always kept me reading and it kept me more engaged in the books. I actually learned a lot more because when I was teaching something, it wasn't just like, okay, that's cool versus, oh, okay, I need to put that into a quick 10-minute message for our next staff meeting, right? And by teaching those things, I was the one who actually got the most benefit out of it. So that's something that's always been near and dear to my heart is developing our staff. So that's what I wanted to start with today is just, I have a whole stack of books, but the one I was going to do a quick teaching from was The Human Operating System. I highly recommend this book. It's kind of obscure. It's an older book and I think on Amazon, it's like $30. It was a little more expensive. It's kind of worksheet style, but we went through this on our first year or two in Orange Theory with our studio managers. They have a copy of them. I just love it. It's super simple. And I was going to share something out of it today. So my screen share, it takes up the whole thing. So I'm going to do a quick little message. And then for now, what I'd like everybody to do is in the meantime, keep thinking of, so what are some of the most impactful books you've had? And I'm going to go through this probably in the next 10, 15 minutes. And then we'll share what are some of the best books that you've had an impact with your staff on. So I'm going to share something. And this is exactly how I would teach our staff at a quick staff meeting. Take like 15 minutes there. So this, let's see if I can get screen share going. There we go. So this chapter was on accountability.
Hey, how's it going?
So, and so this is chapter 7 out of the Human Operating System.
Hey, Ryan, you can make Aaron an ad or anybody co-host and they can mute different people if you want.
Okay, let me get out of this real quick here.
Or we can just shame Tim somehow, just shame him into muting himself. Oh, we did that. Shaming's more fun. If you can shame them into muting themselves, that's the best. But if you are nicer than that, then make some of the co-host.
All right, I got him this time here. And then okay, what am I sharing now? I'm all over the place. Okay, here we go. All right, so accountability. So again, this is one of the ones that straight out I would teach my staff. And accountability, for most of us, it sounds bad. We look at as accountable almost as a synonym for discipline or punishment. And we have we have to be accountable for our actions. You know, that sounds like it can be scary. But one of the quotes that Larry Sen has in this book here is, empowered people believe that they can make a significant change in the world around them. When you have that philosophy, there's nothing that cannot be done. And people talk about being in your peak state and feeling empowered. That's how you're going to perform at your best, right? But empowerment comes when you know you can make a difference and you have control. And that only comes when you have accountability for what happens around you. So the opposite of accountability mindset would be a victim mindset. And, you know, accountability or victim mentality, there isn't really an in between. You're either on one side or you're on the other. So let's go through the value of having an accountability mindset. Accountability mindset, the value is you're learning and growing from your mistakes. You're focusing on solutions with a can-do attitude. I got this. You're getting more results when you have a accountability mindset. You're more in control because you take responsibility for all of the results. You gain more respect from others. Everybody loves somebody who's accountable for their actions, especially as a manager. You have people that you work with that are accountable and people that take that victim mentality, and you know who your favorites are. You have higher self-esteem when you're accountable because you know that when you get things done, that was because of you. Now, the price for accountability is sometimes we have to admit we made a mistake or contributed to that shortfall. That was my fault. That was my bad. We have to assume some risk. And sometimes it might not be culturally okay to make a mistake depending on management. I hope as managers, we allow our people to make mistakes, but in some businesses, you know, you make a mistake, you could be up for some scrutiny. You look imperfect and you take on more work to fix it. It is more work to be accountable for your actions than it is to just like shuffle the blame to somebody else. Now, if you look at these two columns, all of the things of the value of accountability are long-term benefits, and the prices are short-term price. It's a quick price, but all of those benefits are long-term. Now, if we flip-flop this and we look at the value of victim mentality, and by the way, for managers, you know, this is great for you, but I also want you to think of how my staff would be receptive to this, because there's some people that would eat it up and there's all those others that are like, you know what? I like keep doing this stuff until my entire staff is receptive to this, because then they're all growing and we kind of weed out the ones that don't want to, focus on personal growth. But the value of victim mentality is you gain sympathy, you avoid blame. It's not my fault. It was the machines or it was the networks or whatever it was. You save face or your ego, and holding on to that erroneous, I'm right? I don't make mistakes. You can keep that solid there. You avoid risk of making a mistake, and you avoid working. I can't change it, so why put in that extra effort? And then the price of victim mentality is your fewer results. You're not learning from, and therefore you're repeating mistakes more often. You're not growing from your experiences. You lose respect from others around you, and you lose a lot of self-respect when you don't get that done. Last one is feeling of powerlessness. You're like, I'm hopeless. I can't fix it, so I can't do anything. And nobody loves that feeling of powerlessness. And so now if you look at these ones, the value of being a victim mentality, they're all short-term, and the price are all long-term prices. And so it flip-flops. I would much rather pay a short price for a long-term benefit than pay a long-term price for a short-term feeling benefit, right? And so now, how do we become more accountable? So generally this is go through a few things and then you give them the action steps, right? And so here's an accountability ladder. So you want to start with, the powerless is being completely unaware. So can you become aware of them? And then blame others. So can we stop blaming others? And then it's excuses, wait and hope, acknowledge reality, owning it, find solutions, and then get on with it. And, sometimes you can just attach a little catchphrase and put a little Post-it note of like, hey, I got it, or get on with it, whatever, use your own terms. But these are great ones to get some mantras from. But when you start showing people where do you fall on this ladder when something happens, when mistakes happen, are you making excuses? So this is a great place to ask your staff on this accountability ladder. How many people have made a mistake before? They all raise their hand. All right, when you made a mistake, where were you on that mistake that you're thinking of? They're like, well, it was an excuse. I blamed it on MBO. Okay. Sometimes MBO messes up. What could you have done differently to take a little bit more ownership of it? Well, I could, and you start digging into the solutions of it. So I love the accountability ladder. And then the mood elevator. This is a huge one. So let me before I quite get to the mood elevator, we're going to finish with 3 tips of becoming more accountable. And the first one is getting out of low level thinking. So we have to be aware of the quality of our thinking. So low level thinking is saying to yourself things like, why me? How did this happen to me? Who did this to me? Life's not fair, that type of stuff. High level thinking is, okay, what can I do now? What can I learn from this? No blame, right? Not blaming, saying, hey, they might have messed up, but I know I could have done something to help. What could have I done to help that situation, even if they did make the mistake? So this accountability ladder, this is huge. And when you're at the top, your mood elevator, this is when you're performing at your best. When you're down here, you're of course performing at your worst. So all of us have fallen in the red sometime before. If you're human, you're going to be there sometime or another. So when you find yourself being defensive or judgmental or stressed or depressed, any of these ones, impatient, a good question to ask is, can I get to curious, right? And this often happens when, you have a staff member make a mistake for the umpteenth time of something you've told them over and over and over. And you're like, this person just drives me crazy. They're not listening. They don't, whatever it is, you're irritated, you're offensive, they're judgmental about them, self-righteous about it. I've done everything I can to help them figure it out. Can you get to curious? Can you get to, you know what? I wonder what's really going on. I wonder if there's something going on with them that I'm not seeing that's helping them. And when you can at least get to here, that starts helping you climb up this ladder here. And when you can operate at the top of the mood elevator, your performance is always going to be better. So that's a big part of getting out of low level thinking, is your awareness of where you are in the mood elevator. Another thing you can do to get out of low level thinking is acknowledge your low level thinking and delay reacting or get coaching. So when I'm irritated right now, I am irritated. That's not the best state to be interacting with my staff. So I'm going to take a minute and go and get coaching sometimes. Sometimes it might be from a colleague. Sometimes, you only want to gripe up though. If you ever seen Saving Private Ryan, you don't complain to like your assistant manager and sometimes even another manager. You try to only gripe up, and you really shouldn't try to gripe, because what you're looking for when you get coaching, you're not looking for sympathy. You don't want your person to say, yeah, that person sounds like an idiot. I don't know how you deal with them. That's not what you want. What you want is some perspective, right? Larry Sen says in this is, don't look for someone who will commiserate with you and shower you with sympathy. I know as managers, there's times where we do that, where you're like, oh, my staff's driving me crazy. And then it's like a contest of whose staff has made the worst mistakes in the last week. Like, oh, you wouldn't believe what my staff member did. That's not what you want, right? You want somebody who's going to shower you with a dose of perspective and say something like, well, what do you think they really were trained that well? Or maybe, maybe they need to hear it more than 1 or 2 times to actually get it right. Yeah, they probably do. Right. Or maybe they have too much on their plate and we need to figure out how to get them some support and getting somebody to give you some perspective too. And last tip on getting out of low level thinking is low moods are temporary. So realize they're going to pass. Sometimes when we're irritated or we're stressed, that's how we feel like it's going to be. And realize that I'm stressed right now. I need to take a minute, take for a walk. And I know this is going to pass. Just like the storm will pass, being stressed will pass. So getting out of low level thinking is one of the first of the 3 ways to work on being accountable. Second way is just asking good questions. So questions give direction for our attitude. So be mindful of the questions that you ask yourself, because they will point you in the direction of high level accountable thinking, or they'll send you to low level thinking. So, asking what extra steps could I have taken? What opportunities did I miss to be unwilling to act? I played football, and one of my favorite parts of football was Monday morning film session and going back and looking at all of the mistakes. What could I have done better? Where could I have improved? Even if a play went perfect, is there something I could have done to even make it better? What lessons could I have learned sooner to avoid this? Here's what personality traits or habits of mine might have aggravated the situation? That's a tough one to ask sometimes, right? Because it's getting personal. And what more can I do with these results? So be aware of the questions you're asking yourself, because the questions will point you in the direction of becoming more accountable or of, getting into that victim mentality. And then the last one is intentional about where you put your energy. So you may, and here's a good little visual here. So put more focus on what you can control and on less of what you can't. So the target, you have number one, the outside part. There's a million things that are outside of your control and you have no input on it. COVID, right? The second thing is you have, it's outside your control, but you have some input. You can say, hey, I can't control that situation, but I have some input on how we can handle it. Third is you can influence the situation. And 4 is you can directly control. So you try to focus on those activities that are in the 3 and 4, especially in 4 there. And so I'll finish up with a couple quotes, one from the author and one from Reinhold Niebuhr there. It says, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that's, sometimes things are out of our control. Don't let those stress you out. Focus on the things you can and be aware of which ones are which. Sometimes we get wrapped up in all the things that we can't control. I know I was there last year, especially. But the great thing with business is we have so many things that are in our direct control. And then the amount of things we're able to influence is really incredibly high. So the last thing I'll just finish with the quote from the author. It says, in my experience, this one trait, accountability, more than any other, can make the difference in a company, a person being a moderate performer or an excellent one. And so that is just a quick lesson. Oh, where are we at? Okay, we're back. And so that was one chapter out of the, Brenda, if you want to message, there we go. Sorry. I see a whole bunch of people in the waiting room now. There we go. I couldn't see anything with my screen share up there, but so that was just an example of taking 10 to 15 minutes of taking even just like one little chapter out of a book and then delivering something to your team. And so, when you first start that, especially if you've never done it, I've noticed you get the people that are like, their eyes are up here and totally head in the clouds. And then you get others that totally dig it. So, try to start small and just kind of start working into it. Know who your people are. And if you know that you might have some resistance, talk to your biggest fans beforehand and say, hey, we're going to get into something that we normally don't cover. And I could use a lot of enthusiasm for you. So we really make sure that people are about this, because if we can get everybody tied in, it's going to make everybody perform better, and everybody's going to like working with others when they're performing better. All right. Sorry for everybody who just joined in. I was doing a screen share and I couldn't see the waiting room. I think I'll have to start using the code one of these instead here. So that was a quick lesson from the Human Operating System. It's by Larry Sen is one of the authors there. Highly, highly recommend it. I had the big, huge poster of the mood elevator in my Cutco office for years. We just have it up. And I would be pointing at it all the time when assistant managers or anybody was frustrated with somebody. I'm like, where are you at right now? Where are you operating at? Or if somebody came in and they were just having a rough, you could tell it's like, hey, where are you at right now? Can we get to curious? And then let's get in a better operating state. So I'd like to open it up and just start sharing. I have a stack here of some of my favorites, but what are some of the books that you've used either personally to become a better manager, or some that you've shared with your staff? Any recommendations, even if you haven't read the whole book, of like, hey, I got this from this author, or maybe YouTube talk. I know now, probably people get more stuff off of digital stuff with YouTube and everything else than just the hard copy books too. So who would like to share something there? Is that Marla?
I'll share.
Hey, Marla.
Hey. Hold on. Okay, so one that with my team is called the Energy Bus, and it's by John Gordon, and I guess not more of like a leadership one, but it's an easy read and it's super fun. And it's about like positivity and stuff like that, like with your team and just different things like that. So the Energy Bus is a really good one for positivity and like energy and stuff like that, like within yourself and like at work and everything else. So it's a really good one, easy read.
Yeah, I love that one. Did you do were you taught out of it? Did you guys have your whole staff read it and then share? What are some of the ways that you utilized it? And
So
you can keep your screen off if you're driving. I don't want you to.
Okay, hold on. So a while ago, one of my leaders, like one of my most influential like leaders, I guess, made us like read it because he would always like assign, books and stuff for us to read. And it was like book reports. I swear we had to come back and like tell him what we learned and just different things like that. And so he assigned it. And then I'm just a pretty, I don't know, like positive, happy person. And so I really liked it. And then just kind of reading it and stuff like that. And so I would share some of it. But then whenever I had like somebody that was kind of negative or like my assistant managers or, something like that, I would really, I would give them a copy or I would buy it, from the digital or something like that and just kind of give it to them and do the same thing that he did for me. Cause like it really, he helped me grow and like I don't know, like he was like my favorite. And by doing that, those are things that really helped me like grow in leadership and everything else. And so I just think it's amazing to do stuff like that. But it's a good one.
I love
especially
that.
for an easy read. So
yeah. It's great to start with those ones, especially those story format type leadership books versus just, the nonfiction bullet point one after the other for some, if you're trying to get your staff into some of these personal development books. But, you're all great managers. And so I'm sure that in your staff, all of you have at least one or two like mini me's, the people who admire you so much that when they see you get excited about something, they get excited about it. If you're like, hey, I went rock climbing last week. And all of a sudden 2 weeks later, they're like, hey, I went and tried that rock climbing thing you were talking about. Right. And so sharing the things that you're getting excited about, just like Marla mentioned there, that's a great one. And a lot of my books, I used to go onto the Amazon, the used books, and there's so many of them you can buy for like a penny with like $2 shipping or whatever. And I would just get stacks of the books. And then every leadership meeting we had with my managers, whoever, every time they got there, I'd just have a big stack of them. I'm like, oh, everybody pick one, and everybody just grab one. And we do some sharing from those, but that's a great one, Marla. Who's, Kevin, Tim, Eric, what's a book that you've most utilized in your business?
Ryan, I hate to admit this, but one of the worst bosses I ever had used to give us books to read once a month, and 99% of them were terrible. But this one, Why Should Anyone Be Led by You by Rob Goff, is quite good. And I think it's all about being an authentic leader and not being a different person at home versus at work. And that's a struggle, especially in the Fortune 500 environment, but even in what we do, it can be as well, like to not be seen as, the evil owner at some point. But it's been really good for me.
That's great. Can you go over the title one more time?
Yeah, it's Why Should Anyone Be Led by You by Rob Goff.
All right, I have not heard that one there. And that authenticity is a big one too, because I opened up by talking about developing our staff for retention and things, and people are going to see through stuff where if like, hey, I'm going to give you this book because I don't think you have people skills and I need you to be better in my business. So please read this so you can mature as an adult. And you're probably not going to get a great response from that type. And they can see it, they can tell if you really have their genuine interest or you're just like, I need you to be better. And so, that's great how you open that, Kevin, because I think we definitely have those people where if you're not genuine about it, and if you're just like, hey, I heard this thing on a call from the mastermind, and so all of you guys are going to start reading books now, most of your people are going to be like, this sucks. So what else were some of the books? Tim or Eric, if you're on, Lori? So I'll go through just a few and interrupt me if we have. These two were two of the first ones that I would do teaching out of. I didn't have them read it. These were ones that I taught because each chapter is like 8 pages so 9 pages, 9 pages there. And they all have like a little story, or like 1 or 2 stories, and then 3 little bullet points. So you could read this in 5 or 10 minutes, teach it in 5 or 10 minutes. It's easy, just like a quick little bite of a staff meeting. John Maxwell has a million books. Most of his stuff is great, especially like the Developing Leaders Around You, the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. He's got leadership books for days there. But these were 2 that were really bite-sized. And if you're just starting to teach your team some things, the development staff meetings there, and I'll put a post up in the Facebook group with this recording and some of the books. But these were some of the first 2 that I just thought were really great. These 2 are, like Marla mentioned, similar to the Energy Bus, where they're story format. So the Radical Leap by Steve Farber. And it's about a San Diego surfing guy and finding a mentor and a guy who's really struggling with his businesses. And this is more for a leader. This is like your managers, assistant manager would be a great one. Not so much your sales team. The other ones are great for your whole team. And then the Leader Who Had No Title. This is a great assistant manager book of, people taking value in their position, no matter what their position is. So even just your sales reps, your front desk, anybody, but I thought they're great stories. These are 2 of the most popular ones. I've had a lot of feedback for, when I put that stack of books out every month, there were some that stayed there for a while, and there were some that got picked up really fast because they heard everybody else talking about the ones that they grabbed. But if you want fairly short ones that are story format for leadership, those are ones we've had a lot. Our next call should be at the end of July, and I am not going to be doing hardly any talking. We're going to have a guest, Dane Espegard, who basically now he's a longtime Cutco guy, but he's now doing weekend events and corporate events where he's working with people's teams on helping them accomplish their goals and dreams. And a lot of that was sparked by the Dream Manager, Matthew Kelly. So he's going to do a full workshop on that. And I think we might open up that call to a lot more people, because he usually charges a lot and we get them for free. So that'll be cool. But the Dream Manager is about working with your staff and helping them accomplish their outside work objectives. So, and really just building your team where it goes through a couple of examples of, the retention and the leadership they had in a certain company, because they helped them accomplish all these things that had nothing to do with work, right? But that was a focus. They had somebody on staff who was like the Dream Manager, and once a month, everybody got to work with them and help them with their outside work goals. And hey, how can we help you get there? So that was a very cool one. I know Eric is a member of Front Row Dads, and this is one that went around in Front Row Dads big time. A lot of them for being a parent, right? From the lessons of 15 commitments of conscious leadership as being a leader in your household. And so this was a tremendous book. And I'll tell you that every once in a while you read a book where it's a great book and it makes you feel terrible at the same time. This was one of those ones where I'm like, oh no, I think I'm doing such a good job. And then you read some things and you're like, no, I'm not doing the best job. I still have so many areas of growth. And this was one of those books for me. Probably it's a little deeper. It's probably not one that you're like going to do book club with your staff, but just personally, I think this is a great one, and you'll get some nuggets that are great for your staff. Eric, did you get into this one?
No, I didn't read that one. I need to get it. I've been on Amazon ordering books. Kevin had that one looked awesome. The one that Kevin recommended, especially when he set it up. Like, my boss gave me a bunch of sucky books, but this was like one of the only good ones. I'm like, okay, I need to get that one. And then Matthew Kelly, is he the one that wrote Resisting Happiness as well? A yellow cover.
I don't know if he wrote Off Balance. There's one of the titles has 7 something in it, 7 of focus, but I don't know if that's the one. John Ruhlin's the guy who got Matthew Kelly to the Cutco talks there too. So I know John had a relationship with him.
No, he did. I just looked, and he has a book I read called Resisting Happiness. And so, dude, that will be good, man. I can't wait for that. I'm going to make sure I'm on that one.
Great. Yeah, Matthew Kelly is amazing. I really recommend his stuff. Last one is this is just an oldie goodie one. This is just a Jim Rohn book. Again, this one's a little expensive on Amazon if you can even find the copies, but this is just a lot of the little mini lessons. But Jim Rohn is who one of Tony Robbins' mentors was, right? So Jim Rohn was a big guy. He's, since passed, but this is old guru. He goes up with like Zig Ziglar and, Brian Tracy and these guys. So if you look at some old YouTubes, you can find some Jim Rohn stuff out there. But this is just a big one that has a whole bunch of mini lessons from Jim Rohn. But I love to have just a stack of these types of things. So it's easy. If you do 5 to 10 minutes of reading a day, a lot of times you can get through different lessons. And if you're doing that at least 3 to 5 times a week, it's easy to pluck one of those out that you can share with your staff. All right. So those were some of the goodies. But Eric, I know what you mean. It's like especially when you have a Zoom and we have a guest speaker, I feel like I'm on Amazon every Zoom I have. And I think that whole bottom row is like my queue behind me there. So it's hard to keep up sometimes. But Eric, what are some ones that you've used in your business, especially working with people and staff members or partners?
And I'm trying to think. I'm usually never draw a complete blank, but I am blanking out on stuff. I remember a real simple one's the 1 minute manager. Yeah. That's like that's a classic one, but that's just a real simple one. So if you don't want the $160 Jim Rohn book, because I just looked at that, Ryan.
Is that how much it is? Holy smokes.
Yeah, it's like 160. I don't even know if you can get it, but I'm looking at it. But the 1 minute manager, Ken Blanchard, is I just remember back then it was a really good book for me when I was kind of starting out and whatnot, and real simple.
Love that one. What do we have any questions from managers or people on of like what's good resources for this issue I'm dealing with, or this is something I'd like to focus on my staff about this? What are some resources? Hey, Lori.
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, so I have a very strong massage therapist. She has a very strong, I want to say it's a strong personality. And she lets her emotions take over. Instead of actually talking to us in a civil manner, I would like for her to be able to talk to us like that. Instead of she just yells and she just like flies off the handle. And I would like to work with her. She's excellent. She's a great massage therapist. However, when she finds something that's not right to her, she voices her opinion right away, and everybody sees that as lashing out. She's not effectively communicating with people around her.
Yeah.
How can I get her to calm down?
Is she the type of person? Like, a couple of questions. First is she the type of person that would like be interested in personal growth type stuff, or is she kind of this is somebody who you have to like stick the medicine in the peanut butter kind of thing?
Yeah, I would have to say that, because she's not very receptive to constructive criticisms. It's always, well, it was the other person. It was what they did to me. It was how they spoke to me. And I've already addressed it with another young lady, and she was able to calm down. However, with this lady, I'm kind of at wit's end, because I don't know how to approach her without I have to feel like I have to walk on eggshells when I'm around her.
And then what kind of staff meeting type settings do you have with are you just working with them one-on-one? Do you ever have where you're working with all of them at the same time? Like what kind of format do you have where you'd be able to give some things that might help?
I don't really have like that communication with her, and I would like to build it, but it's kind of hard to really talk to somebody that already has their predisposition of you without you. I don't know if you understand.
No, I get you.
I know she has this.
She has that tried. Wall up, right?
She does. This person does have this wall up, and I don't know how to bring her back. When I first started, it was great. And then all of a sudden this wall came up, and she's not effectively communicating her concerns. And I would like for her to be able to do that. And instead she oversteps me and goes and talks to my front desk and starts yelling at them. And they're just looking at her like, oh my God, like deer caught in head, like what just happened?
Yeah. Marla. And then,
so like if it was fine before and like now she's not, it sounds like something maybe happened. And have you tried to have just a very like candid conversation, like a what the whatever, like conversation with her? If she flies
off, she has completely blocked me off. When she comes in, she avoids me at all times. I don't know how to approach her without her automatically feeling being defensive.
Aaron?
Can I offer some advice?
Yeah.
So I think first, like, it sounds like you just like, I think of things that I've learned through my career. And like, one of the things that stuck with me was when I was at Starbucks, and it's like, people don't care about how much you know, they want to know how much you care. And so I think, how do you like find a space to just sit down with her and connect with her and find out like, how are you? And just like, I've noticed a subtle shift in you, and just ask like very basic questions. Like the other thing I was at Orange Theory as well, and was fortunate enough, and they paid for me to get my professional coaching certification. And so I learned how to actually coach people. And one of the things is like, you just need to ask questions and let them do the majority of the talking. So you don't need to, the more you are trying to come at her, the more it's going to make her defensive, versus like, this is what I've noticed. Don't be attached to it. Like, you've got to come to it from a space of non-attachment. Like, you don't have a personal reaction to it. I'm concerned. Like, this is what I'm noticing. Like, tell me what's going on, and see what she starts to talk to you about. And as she talks, there's things she's going to say that you're going to be able to ask her further questions. Like, you know, like, I hear you saying X, Y, and Z, like, why is that frustrating you? Or where is that coming from? Like, you want to create a space where they can just be open, honest, transparent, and vulnerable. And see what she says, you know. But that's what I personally would do, to just like see where she's at, so you can kind of take down the walls and then try to be able to move forward.
So this is coming from Erin, who just had like half her staff go away. So, but that's good. I mean, Erin's really good, but you know, just you know, like, at what point is it time for them to go away? One of the things that I think about too and I've talked about it a lot recently, is how people respond under pressure or stress versus how they just respond without that. So that person might just have a ton of pressure or stress going on. Or it might just be time, but I don't know. Ryan, you're better at this than I am.
The other thing to just share really quickly is kind of what I'm sharing, and I'm happy to talk to you offline too more, but like, you switch the ownership, as Eric said, is I've helped a lot of people exit the bus at Yoga 6 that I'm helping Eric out with right now. But it's about putting the ownership back on them. It's not about you taking the ownership. It's like, I noticed their unhappiness needs to reside with them. So you got to keep the accountability that Ryan talked about earlier with the right person too. So the accountability is with her, but you can do that in a way that's like, not like accusatory or judgmental or any of that, but it awakens them to what they need to change, which you might help her see that this isn't the place for her, which that's essentially what I did with the majority of these people. It wasn't me saying you need to go because you're not doing what I want you to be doing, or X, Y, and Z. It was getting them to recognize, yeah, this is not where I'm the best or I'm happy, and it's time for me to choose something else.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's always that line of, you know, top performer versus culture fit. and where it is,
Right.
and you try your best, but sometimes that's not there. But a few things I would have tips for you, at least with what when Aaron was saying, really, dig in and ask them questions. The goal of that too is to understand, not to fix, right? Because sometimes managers get there to like, okay, tell me everything so I can fix it, versus let me give you a safe space to feel heard and understood. And when they see that, later you can get to some solutions. So that's a great step, I think, from Aaron there. Another step I would take is try to find some kind of systematic way where you are able to get to your staff to deliver information, so you can be proactive about some of these things instead of reactive. And that really goes to the balance where, especially it sounds like with a lot of your massage therapists, if you don't have a kind of a set meeting or things like, I assume a lot of the times you're having a deep conversation with them, it's generally when they aren't they're messing up something a lot of times. Usually it's like, hey, how are you going? There's some light stuff, but then like when we need to talk, it's because something's not there. And that's when I hear that, like, we've all had that text, like, I need to talk, right? Doesn't matter who it is. It's like, oh, it's not good. If it was good, you just tell me what we need to talk about, right? And as soon as they see that, then boom, that wall goes up. So what's the balance of longer conversations that you have with her that are positive versus the ones that are corrective? Because if there's more longer conversations that are positive and it's just letting them talk, or, hey, I just wanted to talk, I need to talk to you. And sometimes I like setting it up to break that pattern where I'm like, I will say, hey, I need to talk to you in my office. And they come in like this. And I'm like, hey, what I need to do is I have 7 reviews and they're all about you and they're all amazing. And I just wanted to share them with you. And it's like, boom, sledgehammer to that wall and just crumble it. And so then the next time they hear that, it's not like, crap, what do I got again? I got to put my gloves on and get ready to go, duke it out. And so what are that balance of conversations that you have with her and we all, I mean, as managers, we all do that when they come in, like, oh, hi, how's it going? Did you have a good weekend? But that's really shallow stuff, right? It's not, I mean, don't not do it. It's still good. But like having a good conversation, sitting down and really complimenting them, sitting them down and really getting them to open up without trying to fix anything, having more of those conversations than where it's just the corrective conversations, you're going to get more out of those corrective conversations when there's a healthier balance. By the way, we've had a lot of awesome book recommendations in the chat, so keep those coming as we go. I appreciate everybody's put some in there. Does that help, Lori?
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah. Have you had her take CVI, by the way? Because I assume she's probably off the chart builder there. So what I mentioned having some kind of format for everybody, even if it's just like a newsletter, start doing something where it's like, hey, everybody want to take CVI? This is something cool we're working on or our manager's done. And here's the tip for the week. And it's 3 little tips. And it's just something, easy where it's not in your face. Hey, let's all have a 30-minute meeting that we've never had before. I'm going to do self-development stuff. Try to just ease your way into it with just something in there to get in front of them. That's great. Anybody else have questions, comments, books to share, anything they want to get into? Hey, Kevin.
Yeah, Ryan, I would just say that this is a bit circuitous, but somebody gave me this book called The Human Magnet Syndrome, and it's about why we like people who hurt us, narcissists, basically, the emotional manipulators. And they gave it to me really because of a bad romantic and business relationship I was in, and it was fitting, but I found it much more useful at work, whether it's hiring yoga teachers who are all about themselves, or in the startup I'm involved in, dealing with VC people and PE people who don't care about anything but, taking my money to make more money for them. And it's really, it's been really, really useful at work, not just in sort of the personal relationship side. So I'd highly recommend that, especially if you've had trouble, like I admittedly have, of trusting what people say, like at face value, versus digging a little bit deeper and realizing they have, 7 of the 9 traits of a total narcissist.
Got it. That sounds like a great one. Go ahead and anybody else Kevin, if you want to put those in the chat, I'm going to copy the chat and then I'll take the books out of it and I'll put this in the Facebook post along with the recording. But those are some great ones. Anybody else have a topic where they'd like resources for help with your staff? or any other good shares? Okay, well,
that last book that was recommended, what was the name of it?
The Human Magnet Syndrome by Ross Rosenberg. And that's Kevin, just put it in the chat for everybody there. Some good recommendations from Kevin. Great. Well, then one of the things I would just say to finish is I would really challenge, you're starting this summer is what's, not perfection, but what's a step you can take in the next month to be able to give some kind of development teaching to your staff? What's a system you can set up to not just one time, hey, I had a conversation to this one assistant manager, I gave somebody a book one time, but something that you can put into your business processes where, if it's something simple, like we were talking to Lori, maybe it's just a newsletter once a month. And it's like, here's a couple cool things that we've been talking about. And it's 3 little tips just to start getting it in there. Maybe it's, you already have staff meetings, so you're taking 5 minutes of those to teach a chapter out of a book. But what's one little step you can take to start increasing your availability to really develop your staff, those I guess basically vehicles that you're going to use to help get them developed, because most of these people that come in, they're not expecting it. And it's going to be a little weird at first, right? They're entry level. They're like, we never talked about this stuff at this place or that place. And then every once in a while, you'll have somebody that says, you know what, at my last job, we always used to do that and it was awesome. And you're like, that's what we want. That's what we want those people. And you want those people, first of all, but then you want them to be saying that about your culture, right? Years from now, you want them in their career where they're now, I remember I was started off as a receptionist for Massage Envy, and my manager, Lori, she always used to tell me these things. And like, I read these 3 books and I still use those today. And that, that's the type of stuff that you want. And that always makes you feel good. Hearing some of those stories later, because you'll get people that'll come back out of the blue and say stuff. I still get Facebook messages or text every once in a while. It's like, hey, remember that one thing you used to beat into our heads and we all didn't like at the time? Like, I use that every day now, right? So I really encourage you to see what kind of development can you set up for your staff, because it's a little painful at first, especially if you're going from nothing to something. But if you can just take a little step and try to get your top people involved in it, right? Culture is usually started not from one person affecting many at once. It's one person affects the next, and then the next, and then it kind of steamrolls and people pick up steam from that. I'll post a funny YouTube video to go along with that. I can't explain it and do it justice here. So, but that's it. Any other questions or anything for today? All right, I will try to get a date set up as soon as possible. I think it's going to be sometime that last week of July. I'm working with Eric to get, his name is Dane Espegard, but he's going to be basically focusing on that dream manager type scenario of helping your people accomplish things from outside of work. And some of the companies he's working with have never done that type of stuff, and he's showing them how to fully integrate it. So he has like full weekend seminars he does corporately to like intro events. So his full-time seminars are pretty pricey. So it's cool to be able to get him on the call there. So let me know if you have anything. I'll post this in the Facebook, and feel free to keep the conversation going in the Facebook group. If there's other books come up or questions, you can always reach out. So it was good seeing everybody, and we will talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
All right, bye.